Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim of Rambam, Hilchos, Sha'ar Avos, Hatumos, prakim Tezvav, Tezayin, and Yud Zayin, beginning with Perek Tezvav. Now, we started in Perek Yud Daled to learn about the Shneim Asar Sveikos that the Chachamim made completely tahar. We are up to the Safek Divrei Seifrim, as we spoke out in yesterday's chapter, Perek Yud Daled. We went through the first 4, and now we are continuing Safek Divrei Seifrim throughout all of the 12. We're going to learn, amongst many other things in this chapter, a very important rule that kol hatumais kesha'as mitziyasan. In other words, the way you find things, that will be the most important foundation of how will you come to a judgment. All right, even though if you know that there was a problem, but now there's not, and you discovered it now, or the opposite way around, as the Rambam will explain how this rule expresses itself. We're going to have this rule throughout the various chapters. Further, Perek Hamisha Asar has 11 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. So again, this is the 5th from the 12th. Says the Rambam, Safek Divrei Seifrim, that the Chachamim are lenient. Ketzad Safek Achal Oichlin Tameim V'Shasa Mashkin Tameim Safek Shalei Achal Shalei Shasa. And we learned that that in the Perek Ches, that when you eat non-kosher, when you eat tamei foods, midoraisa, we're speaking about foods that are only tamei on the level of a rishon. A rishon cannot be metama adam. Nevertheless, if you eat a certain amount, remember the chatzi pras, toich kedei achilas pras, then you become tamei. So the whole tumah is a derabanan. Now, what happens if you have a doubt whether you ate that? Or another rabbinic, Safik shabarosh she'uben, and as we learned in Perek Tes, right, that renders you tamei midrabanan, but there's a doubt whether that happened. Or Safik shalaba b'shaloi naflu. That's a classic case of you have a suffix whether something, even if it happened, will only bring about Tuma Midrabanan. We are completely lenient. Chein ochal oichlin temeim bevadai oishas amashkin temeim oishubaba mayim sheuvim oinoflo alav shleish lugan mayim sheuvim. That's no doubt. In other words, the person knows they are Tamei Midrabanan Abe, the suffix Naga B'Taharis Elo, but now there's a doubt whether you touch the Haris. There's a suffix. Suffix Nagam says that Rambam Hare Taharis Elo Te Hoirois. Chein Hoichel Suffix Oichlin Tameim Vashoisa Mashkin Shem Tameim B'Suffix Vada you ate. Vada you ate the amount of a Chatzi Pras B'Trekede Achilas Pras. But the foods are only tamei misafek. Harezator. V'chein ha'oichel teruma teluya, which we keep on explaining. Teluya by default means that there's a doubt here, right? Or then you will be tahar. Then you'll be tahar. Okay. V'chein kol chayotze be'elu. Now the key is that you are beginning bevalde tumais. In other words, not an av. An av, though we can be matama and adam. That's not a suffix derabbanan. That's not a suffix divrei sefer. But if you're beginning with a v'latuma, sheima divrei seifrim. I'll give you another example. Goyim, right? Goyim are tamei, taka tamei, but midrabbanan. We learned the whole chapter. There's a remes v'natoira, shaket tishak but it's only midrabbanan. So whenever you have a doubt, since you are beginning with the rabbinic, sveikoi tahar. Amachaya, Pashut, Aval, however, Av Hatumam, even if the Av is only on the level of the Divrei Seifrim, there's Sveikoi Tamei. So it's not so like Pashut. Yeah, but Midrabanan Relakula. No, there can be Av, but if the Av is Divrei Seifrim, Sveikoi Tamei. Ella im Kain, Hoyo Ha'av Atzmai Tamei Besafek. Unless the av by default has to do with the suffix, like beisapras, eretz ha'amim, she'ein sofen al sfeik magon, kamei shubiyanu, that even though you're beginning with an av, remember we learned? So what did we learn? We learned that if a guy has a suffix, whether they walk through a beisapras, the Rambam called it actually a sfek sveika. Also, you're going to be tahar, even though you're beginning with an av. Halacha base. Now we're moving on to the 6th of the 12, and that is what we call Safek Chulin. There's a doubt, Binegei Chulin, as the Rambam explains. Well, now, hold on. Chulin, who cares? B'chlal? No, we do care, because this man Ba'yisheni were the people that Taharas Oichli Chulin Netara. And they were called the Perushim Taka because of it. Now, Ketzad, Oichli Chulin Netara, and they have a Safek Tumah B'Torah same. So here right away, a default, it's not Truma. You're machmer to eat it with Taro. The aim, tuma ella tuma badois. Those people only practice tuma when there's a badai. That's it, nothing more to that. Simple. Halacha gimel. Moving on now to the 7th. Safek karbanois. Now, guys, this will be an example. A person who's a mechusei kippurim, but sheyesh olav sfeik chamesh karbanois. For example, a woman 5 times has a scenario where she besafek became a zava gedoyla. Not once, 5 times. Safek chamesh zivais. And don't forget that even though normally karbanos, how can you bring a chatas? These are women. The hair case that the chatas is a bird. That the whole beauty is that you could bring a chatas bird on a safek as long as you don't eat it. The question is, do you have to bring 5 sets? No, you don't. So what's pshat that we are going to render leniently that she brings only 1 carbon and now v'tar lecha barkachin. That's the meaning of safek karbanos. Ein ashar olav. I wonder why it doesn't say Allah. Chayva. Clearly, that was in the beginning. The hilchas mechutz lekapor over there in Perikal. Halacha daled. Now we're moving on to the 8th of the 12, and that's a doubt concerning the goyim ketzah. That's the key. You can underline this. It's prior to us establishing that there's tuma. Once it's established that you're tamei, once you become muchlat, everything changes when there's a doubt. Because basically, you leave the status quo. But prior to there being an established tuma, sveikotar, as we learned, the Perek Shishi mehilchas nugayim. I want to point out, if the Rambam indeed wrote this, most cases when the Rambam refers to a series of halachas like we just had before in Gimel, he writes hilchas mechutz kapara. It's in Perek Aleph. The Rambam didn't write Perek Aleph. Hardly ever. Here, Punkt the Rambam writes nach the Perek, if he wrote it in him. The 6th chapter of hilchas nugayim. Okay. Halacha moves on now to the 9th. Safek oimed v'oiver ketzad. We spoke this out b'kitzur yesterday, right? Because we just learned this. It's easy to remember relatively. Yom Tzayda, this unique chumrah that whether it's the Adam that has tzoras or whether it's a beged or whether it's the Evan, it's bia. When they enter a home, everything in the home becomes tummy. It's not oil. It's not like oil. But the concept that they bring the tumah to everything in the home, that's only if either everything in the home is there and the tumah was brought into the home. That's simple. Remember, under the tree. So he reads the chazar, the tzoyra that was sitting under the ilan. So the tumah is affixed. And someone is walking under the same tree. Now, how much under the tree were they? Guys, not every tree. You can have a branch here, a branch there. It's a suffix, hey, olav ha'ilan v'tamei. You know, it's if the ilan taka was over you and over the mitzvah, there's no doubt, but there's a doubt about that. Suffix lo. Another suffix. The Torah was the one that was fixed. The mitzvah was the one that was walking. And you should know that if the mitzvah did not stop, he'll bring no tumah. But we don't know whether he stopped or not. Safek amad inside of it, hatoid or safek loy amad. That's pshat oimed v'oiver. Here we say, even though we're speaking about atuma, sfeikoi is tahor. Halacha vav. This is now moving on to the 10th of the 12 that tiharu chachamim called safek shiratzim. So for those of us who one day, God willing, will know Mishnayos properly, the Rambam really is answering a question. The question is, the Rambam puts everything in numbers. There are 12. If you're going to read Mishnayos, you're going to read Toseftas, there's something that Chazal called Safek Nizrakin. Sounds like another category. So the Rambam says, no, what he called in yesterday's chapter, Safek Shiratzim, sometimes Chazal refer to Safek Nizrakin. It's the same one. So it's all the 10. It counts only for one. And so either call it Safek Shiratzim or call it Safek Nizrakim. Now, Ketzad, Zorak Sheretz or Davar Tamei. and you threw it amongst loaves of breads. All right, a loaf of bread, if it was made with water, is mukhshar, or zora kikar. No, it's not that the tuma was thrown and the breads that used to be tar for sure are stationary. The opposite. The bread is tar, and you had a bunch of dead rodents, and you threw the tarred bread amongst the tomatoes. What's the suffix? Suffix naga, suffix naga. So we paskin harei set tahor. Now here's the key. Now this klal, like we mentioned in the intro, is going to be used mamash today. I think even in both chapters. The very big klal. When you looked at that, when you know, you can see what happens. You can see that someone threw this amongst that, and you can see that there's a likelihood, as before it stopped, could be a touch. When you find it, is it touching now or is it not touching? That's the ikar. How does it look? Ba'asher husham. Since you found it, and based on the rule, shekol hatumais is only kishas mitziyasa. And ve'ein, even though there's a high chance, shema nagaboy, while it was rolling prior to it becoming stationary, it's mamash amongst all these the things that are tamei. Maybe you touch something. We don't say that. Elo hadein kishas mitziyasa. Now you get it. So it's like a tumadoy raisa. Why? Because you found it that it's not touching. Okay. Halacha zayin. We're still in the 10th. We're not going back to the 11th so quick. Hasheretz b'fi achulda. So you have hasheretz means a dead sheretz. It's in the mouth of a chulda. Chulda, when it's alive, is not matame, right? And you see the chulda walking by kikar shel truma. I have no doubt. My weasel walked on my loaf of bread. I have no problem eating it. I want to know whether the chulda, put its mouth down, so the sheretz in the mouth touched the kicker. Another. This is also called nizraken. Nizraken means it was moving. Something is moving here. Now, another case, I saw the weasel putting the mouth down on the breads, but the sheretz in the mouth of the chulda began living. At some point, the chulda took a good bite and it killed the sheretz. I don't know when that happened. So Sofik Chai, Sofik Meis, again, everything is moving here. Now, this goes only to the final clause, the case where the chulda began with the living sheretz. At some point it died. In other words, it took it when it was alive. It began living. But if you lechatchila find it dead, in other words, you can't say Dovi. You see a chulda. The case is you saw the chulda touching everything. You see the dead sheretz. You can't say, well, at some point the sheretz was alive, which it was. If you didn't see it alive, let's use the rule that by tumais you go kishas mitziyasam b'chumra. If you find the sheretz dead now, you don't have the right to say maybe you just died now. You understand? And it ain't tameis. Ra'u achai b'fiyah. Af al pisha matzu meis b'fiyah. When are we using this concept suffix sheretz, right? It's because you saw it alive. You knew it was alive. And it touched breads. After it did all the touching, now you find it dead. But you also knew it was alive. Here you can say nothing was stationary. We also had this concept yesterday, if you remember. Too much stuff. This whole leniency that we have when things are floating. If something is not kavua, it doesn't impart too much so quick. We spoke up if you're men chamayim, just maybe that to make everything in the negative should be for the positive. That means if I can impart tuma, I can impart tara. And if I want to impart tara, I have to be stationary. When you're moving around, some people are floaters. They're tired, visa machzach. They have a stomach ache, they go learn a little bit today. Tomorrow they do a little bit of that, which is a lot better than nothing. But when you're kavua, then you have a koyach. Another application of this, or another example, you have a piece of nevela in the mouth of a kelev. Here from the outside, they're dead from the beginning. In all of these cases, the Sveikaitar, this is the key, my friends. So that's why in the beginning of Allah Chavav, the Rambam just reminds us that sometimes Chazal call this Safek Nizrakin. Why did they use the word Nizrakin? It's really all about Asheretz. Because when are we lenient by the Sheretz? When they are Nizrakin and not when they are Kavua. However, if the living Sheretz that had a dead Sheretz in the mouth was pecking on the ground, not pecking in the breads, so then it's as if they are munachim. The moment tumah is considered halachically as to be stationary, umetamin lemafreya misafek, if it is b'reshus hayachid. Now this is a topic, my friends, that we're going to learn in Perek Tezayin. Actually, we're going to learn all of the sources for this. Right? There's a rule called safek tamei b'reshus harabim sfeikoi tahar, safek tamei b'reshus hayachid sfeikoi tamei. So the Rambam wants to point out at the end of Allah Zayin, it's like this. The Safik Shiratzim, that we are always lenient, which is when it's Nizrakim. The moment it's Kavua, it's not correct to say, if the Tumas Kavua, you have a doubt, you're Machmer. No. Then it depends. Then it follows these general rules. Where did the Safik come about? B'reshus harabim and b'reshus hayachid. Halachiches. Now we're moving on.
Rabbi,
yes, to 11.
Yes. Just recap quickly. If the Sheretz was dead, why is that called kavua if the chulda is moving with it in its mouth?
If in the end of Allah Zayin means that there are certain shirats of the chulda that it's constantly putting its mouth on the ground. The definition here of nizrakin is not what we call kavua das balabata. It means it's on the ground or in the air. In the mouth of an animal or even on a vela b'fia kelev, when the kelev is moving, that's called it's flying the whole time.
So where it says before, where it says Aval im nimtza meis b'fia hare elu tumeis, that's tamei because why? It must be kavua.
There it's nizrakin, because there's a rule that you have to judge things based on what you see. In other words, if I saw that the chulda was touching the breads with the sheretz in it, I saw that, and when I look at it, the only time when I look to see whether the sheretz is alive or dead, it's dead. So you say, if it was dead now, it was dead before. Why would we say it was alive before? The only time where you're lenient is when you saw the sheretz the first time in the mouth of the chulda, the sheretz was alive. That was 5 minutes ago. Now, after it touched the dead. So now you have a question, cheskas de mikara, cheskas de hashta. So here we say, since it's nizrakin, we're always lenient. Good rules. Halachiches. Safek, this is now the 11th of the 12th. Safek reshus harabim ketzad. Now this is the big rule. Tuma shemunachas. See the word, underline the word munachas. At least you're not going to get confused. Like the previous one is called nizrakin. Right? It's munachas b'reshus harabim. The tumas is there. Now I'm walking. Right? I don't care that I'm walking. The tumas are fixed. I don't know whether I touched it or not. We have all these cases, right? You have the tumah buried on the ground, and I walked over the road, over this road. That's all these cases. So I have a question whether I touched it or not. So there's a rule, not mitzad reshus harabim. And just to make it clear, reshus harabim doesn't mean Hilchos Shabbos is reshus harabim. It means a place where there are 3 people or more present. That's what reshus harabim means. Not only 2 people. As we'll learn in the next chapter, Safek Tuma b'reshus hayachid sfeikoi tamei is learned from the case of a soita. The whole definition of a soita is it's him and her and the aid ainba. And the fact that the Torah says that she is tameya labaila, even though she can resolve it by drinking, but prior to that there is an isur. How do you know? Maybe they didn't have a relation. So from that we learned that if there's only 2 people, it's interesting. So it's 2 or 3. However, same doubt. Now, there are exceptions to that. We're going to find times that even there's not nizraken. It's a classical case of a suffix, and it is b'reshus hayachid. And there are going to be many times where you're going to be lenient, as we'll learn in the next chapter. That's because she'ein bohem das lihi shoel. If you're hearing this for the first time after you were born, get used to this. In the case of the soita, The doubt is about people that you could ask. If they would be honest, they would understand what you're asking and they would be able to respond to you. Whenever the doubt is about inanimate things, as we'll see in the next chapter, same concept, even if it happened with Reshus HaYachid, we will still be lenient. Because it's not mamish doime to the case of a site. And the words that we use is da'as lishon. Now we're going to see a lot about this in the next chapter. Okay, halacha 9. Sofek, shtei reshuyois. Guys, this is the final. This is the 12th of the Shnei Maser Sfeikois that Tiharu Chacham. What does it mean, shtei reshuyois? Now that you can only understand the 12th after you got the 11th, which is a very simple rule. If there's a doubt with Reshus HaRabim, you're going to be lenient. If the doubt happened with Reshus HaYachid and there's das lishoy, you're going to be machmer. So hoya davar tomei b'Reshus HaYachid, and there's something tomei b'Reshus HaYachid. The davar tomei b'Reshus HaRabim, or the other way around, And the key point is that you touched one item, one of the two. You don't know which one you touched. So now you tell a person, hey, if it happened with Reshus HaRabim, we're going to be lenient. Happened with Reshus HaYachid, we're going to be machmer. That's my doubt. I don't know where it happened. I don't know whether in which Reshus it happened. Or shehesit not naga es echad mehem, and you don't know which one you moved. Obviously, moving is only a way for you to acquire tumah. If the source of tumah can impart tumah also through carrying, as the Rambam began in Tumah space, and that Rambam repeated already a few times, that Rambam understands that Hesed is mitam masa. Right? Or oish, or whatever. And the heyel alachem mehem, there's a doubt. Now, I don't know. Part of my doubt is I don't know whether it was b'Reshus HaYachid or b'Reshus HaRabim in Reizum Mahel. Then in this case, Harei Zeh Tor. Af al pi shesafek Reshus HaRabim Tor. However, okay, finish. Now that I'm writes like this, and this is going both to the 12th and to the 11th, right? In other words, whenever we're being lenient, either because we know it happened with Reshus HaRabim, right? That's the 11th, Safek Reshus HaRabim, or even it could have been with Reshus HaYachid, but it could have been with Reshus HaRabim. The Rambam writes another rule, that if you come and ask Rav what you should do, they tell him that im tovalta im ikach hefsed. This is a good lesson for people that are Rabbanim. Because even when you can be lenient, you're not allowed to be machmer. The Rambam is telling you to be machmer. Tell the guy to go to the mikveh. If he didn't do it, you're taught. But the Rambam doesn't say tell him to go to the mikveh because Safek Tameh B'Reshus HaRabim taught. So how do you word it? You tell a Yid, no, ich frag dir. They ask you, Rebbe, am I tired or tired? So the Rav has to answer. Let me ask you, if you're going to go to the mikveh, are you going to lose anything? That's the way you word the chumrah, because what is the listener here? You're not asking for him to go. You're not telling him, you're asking a rhetorical question. If you're going to go to the mikvah, you're not going to lose anything. First days. And if you went to the mikvah, it's a chumrah, so it's called your meshubach. But the because Safek Reshus HaRabim is tahar. Again, that goes both to 11th and to the 12th. Now, halacha yud. Sheretz and himso. My friends, it's erased by me. Vishteido, what's the word? Saruf. Got it. Sheretz and himso saruf. You find the sheretz that's burnt. Now, my friends, once something is burnt, it's no longer metame. And this burnt sheretz is amongst the cholim, or you have a talus. And now you find it while it is belua means it's completely worn out. There is a point that it's no longer considered a beged. No, it cannot be metame, or you find a machet, but you find it when it's broken, or it's chaluda, that means it's rusty, and you find it bein hakelim, harei elu tohoiden, bein b'Reshus HaRabim, bein b'Reshus HaYachid. Hold on, guys. By the way, we're speaking just like the sheretz. It began tamei. The talus you knew was tamei. But now you find it's already so brachen, it's not a kelim. The boy's going to be lenient. Maybe only after it touched by cholim, then it got burnt. Or only only then did the machet get broken, or only then did the machet get rusty, or only then ubalsata. We don't say that because of a cloud that we spoke out. Shekol hatumais is kashas mitziyas. And the final halacha in this chapter, halacha yudalev. Shnei Eidim, 2 witnesses. Now this, I don't know the reason, but this is going to be a big leniency. If 2 Eidim tell me, hey, Nitma, you contacted You contracted tuma. And the principal, the guy says, I know that I'm tahar. Toid ani. The din is, hu neman alidei atzmi. Now, I want to just say, okay, if I say I never became tamei, will I be believed? I don't know. I don't know. I think it could be that he is not contradicting the Edom. Maybe all he's saying is, I'm tar. Maybe it means, Danny, that he's saying that I'm tar now. I went to the mikvah. Just because you're telling me that I'm tamei, if I say that I'm tar,
is it a migu? That's why, because he could have said I went to the mikvah, now I'm tar.
Maybe. So then maybe after $1. The Gemara says over there that Adam neman al atzma yosim meya when it comes to tuman taraf. Maybe take a neman. Okay. Now Vafal became, even though there is such a cloud, it's not that they tell him okay, you're good to go. But if he did it, I didn't write this. However, even this guy should listen to the Edom. Okay, Danny, clear. I got it. Yeah. Neman alidei atzma is not a migo. Neman means I didn't go to the mikvah. I'm contradicting the Edom. I'm telling the Edom, no, I am tahar, and I'm believed. Wow, it's a klal by tuman tar. Now let's go weiter. Eid oimer, from here until the end, it follows rules we find elsewhere. Eid oimer nitma, and two Edom say loy nitma. Bein b'reshus rabim and b'reshus hayachid tahar, right? Echad b'makom shnayim is garnish midlish. Shnayim oimer nitma, v'eid echad oimer loy nitma. And this guy is quiet, right? Because that's why the Rambam got that out of the way. You know, it's Amois Neman even to go against Edom. But why again? 1 against 2. I don't care what direction. But Eid Oimer Nitma, the Eid Oimer Loy Nitma, it balances out, or Isha Meres Nitma, Isha Meres Loy Nitma. So that's what happens when you have Edom Hamak Chisham Zed Zed. I know that in Yeshiva, there's 2 ways of looking at it. Any way you want to look at it, they balance each other out. So you go back to what you would have done prior to any of them coming. And what will that be? This general rule. Other than this shneim asas feikois, other than that, in the normal cases, b'reshus harabim, you're going to be tar. B'reshus hayachid, you'll be tamei. B'reshus hayachid tamei. B'reshus harabim tar. Okay. Now, like we mentioned, Perek Dezayin, the Rambam is actually going to bring the source of Safek, Tuma B'Reshus Harabim, Sfeikoi Tar, and it's not stam to say that since the Soita Sfeikoi Tamei happened B'Reshus Hayachid, so if it's not like that case, it's Tar. We actually have a source for Safek, Tuma B'Reshus Harabim, Sfeikoi Tar, as we have from the Soita source, Safek, Tuma B'Reshus Hayachid, Sfeikoi is Tamei. We're going to learn a lot. We said the words in last chapter that even when we say B'Reshus Hayachid Sfeikoi Tamei, there must be sheyesh boy da'as lishohel. There is some intelligent being to whom you can ask what happened, and we're going to see many applications of that. The limits of it, some of it is a little bit open-ended. We'll speak out of Kesef Mishnah. There's a line somewhere, and then the Rambam will conclude about the Arba Sfeikois Omru Chachamim B'Tinoik. There are 4 questionable situations that the Rambam spoke about regarding a child, all, as we will see, connected to this Das Lishoel. Perek Shisha Asar has 10 halachas, beginning with halacha al. Like, who even cares where it came? So here's the chaim. The answer is Shahadei Hatzibur Oisen Pesach Betumah. Bisman Shahatamei Merubim, we're speaking about Tamei Meis. So Chachamim came with Akal V'Chaim that im Tumah Vadois. When it comes to a tzibur, here's Rabbim tzibur. Nitches Bifneim Kal V'Chaimer, when there's only a Safek Tumah. Now the Rambam adds a very important layer. Now this is a rule that the Rambam spoke out in Bias Asuras Perek Yudches, and this is really subject to a famous Machlokes Rishonim. Everyone knows the word Safek D'Oraisa L'Chumra. Machlokes Rishonim, Rambam holds Safek D'Oraisa Midoraisa in many cases is L'Kula. Safek Midoraisa is only Midrabbanan L'Kula. The other side is the Rashba. So the Rambam is going to go back to his sheet over here. That to begin with, She'isur kol asveikos, even it's a doiraisa, when we say safek doiraisa, l'chumra, that's only midivreim, as the Rambam spoke out in Ilchos Bias Asuras Perik Yud Ches. Oh, so Koydem Kol, why is it now? Look at the stretch. Yeah, guys, my friends, when you have a tzibur, we're speaking about the Raif tzibur. Like we spoke out in the previous chapter, just to quickly repeat it, that people are learning Perek Echad L'Yoyim, and they didn't learn yesterday's shir, that the meaning of Reshus HaRabim is not the way it's defined in other areas of halacha. Reshus HaRabim means that it's in an area where you have 3 people or more, not even a tzibur. The minimum of a tzibur is 10 yidden. Forget about the Raif tzibur, means the majority of the Jewish people. We can count the men with the whole sugya we have in the Gemara. Nevertheless, they made this a link. Now, and the answer is because since the Saita that was secluded with that man against whom the husband made a kinoi in front of 2 Eidim, and what happened, no one knows. Not even one person knows. And never the halacha is that she's tameya vada ilabayla. Achatishtem is a raya that when a doubt happens in a private domain, private meaning there's only 2 people there or only 1, but not more than 2, then we consider the person impure. Halacha beis. Now, uchashem sha'asoyto ubayal shnayim, kach safek tuma is only b'shnayim. Avlama ishloisha, even if it happened in what otherwise is referred to as a reshus hayachid, no, hadei safek tumas shomtoid, ki reshus harabim. The Rambam is not calling it a reshus harabim, but he's saying in these halachas it's like a reshus harabim. Another detail. Since the source is from the Soita, it has to be like the Soita. That's only if the person who became doubtfully tamei is someone that yesh boy da'as lihi shoel. He's someone that has enough intelligence that you can ask him, you can be darshan, can be examined. As is the case of the Soita, we're not speaking about whether this guy is trustworthy or not. No. He might. We're not going to believe it. We don't believe the woman if she says or he says by the Soita nothing happened. We don't believe that. But they are people with whom you can converse. So what are we excluding? Now this she'enu yedea, as we'll see, who does that go to? Does that go to any cotton? No, I think even by cotton gufa, depends what age. Then how they speak a toy ketzad. Chedesh shoytoy cotton. She'ein by dasli shol. You see, it's important. Not every chedesh, not every shoyta. The Rambam is not defining. Many of them are not capable. It's not the normal das you need to be machayv in mitzvahs. It's not. Why would you say das lishful? He's saying chedesh shoyta cotton she'ein boy dasli shol. On top of that, that they are chedesh shoyta. They also have. They don't have das. That if you find them in a chutz, or if you find them in a mavui, and he's saying chutz or mavui because if you found them in the street, that's already people are there, more than 3 people, 3 people or more. She'esham tuma, and you look down at them there, v'safik nago safik nago. Now we learned in the previous chapter if the tuma is moving, bachlal will be lenient. That's something else. But if the tuma is fixed, that made a big difference. If it's munachim that Rambam said in the last chapter, that's this. Depends where it happened. Now it happened with Reshus Hayach. So the din is, we don't say, it happened with Reshus Hayach. We don't say that. Because they don't have das lishol. And let's go weiter. Allah Gimel, Hasuma, blind person, Hayashan, a sleeping person, Malach Balayla, someone is walking at night. Sveikim Reshus Hayach Tomei. Because sheyesh loy das li shoel, even that's the Rambam wants to make a big point, guys. If someone is blind, and what are we asking him? Did you touch it or not? This topic, the topic is not something that they know. I'm blind. It was dark. The person is someone that has das li shoel. That's the Rambam's point. Not das li shoel dafka for this. Even with Reshus Hayachid, And now, only the Shoya Lover Shakul, it can go either way. There's no rationale to say one way or the other, and there's no chazak. Yodua that Shecheskasei Nitma Harezatome Ketzad. I want to tell you this type of this mahalach that we are now will also be the whole next chapter. And this is every now and then you have sugis of taruvas in Chazal. Every now and then, every time you have the sugi of sveikas, and it's mamish fascinating because it's so nuanced, and every case is needed there. This chapter, next chapter, how do you consider it shakel? When is it not shakel? It's like about tinok tummy, and you find the tinok that's tummy, guys. We already learned that a tinok can be tummy midday rice. By the cotton ben Yomi was under the oil of mace is an av, and he's on the side of a dough, and a piece of the dough that we're calling a batzek is biyadai. Now, what are you going to say? I'll tell you what you can say, Dovi. Maybe a person got starved, could be. Maybe someone was there. He took off a piece of the isa. There's no doubt the batzek is tummy. The batzek is in the hand of the team that's tummy. That's not called the safek hashakol. Now, he doesn't have das lishol. You can say, well, safek tummy, but it's just a yachid she'ain by das lishol. No, it's not called the suffix shakal. Easy case. All of these says to me because his nature of a tinnik is to touch everything, topping everything. It's interesting in English or Yiddish. So topping, maybe it comes from the tapeyach. I don't know if the Germans use that word. However, I want you to know it's not a vadai. It's not a vadai. So we say that the Isas Tamei, but the Ein Sarfan al Chazakazu guy, that's a Machlokes, Rabbi Yechanan, the Rambam passes like Rabbi Yechanan. Because he wants to make it already clear, we have to learn a lot. It happens to be that even people like us understand this, but but you can't burn it. It's not Vadai, Halacha Dalet. Hoya Mashkin Tamei, if you have Mashkin Tamei, so many cases of this, and you have a Batzik that's Tahar, that you're beginning with that. And you have a behema, other a chaya, other a oif babayis. And now what happened? The nimsa babatzek makaim l'shichasan. Now, guys, let's remember: an animal, I don't care if it's not kosher species, is never tamei. Only a yid is shaykh to be tamei while they're alive. So the fact that you see the teeth marks in the batzek, the tuma will never be imparted from the behema chayav oif. Question is, maybe the behemah chayv prior to biting, they drank of that liquid, and there's another detail. Remember, we learned this guys together. It could be that the behemah drank the liquid and then it smacked its lip with its tongue, and it's its own saliva. Which even the fact that you find moisture is not, if not, there's nothing to talk about. No, who says it's the moisture of the liquid? Maybe it's the moisture of the animal. So here we go. So we say that chazaka sheshasu mashkin, and then v'nashchu ba'batzich v'timu. Again, not that you're cited. You know why? Because azay esen behemoths. If you have in front of you food and drink, what do you do first? What are we saying? We're saying that a behemoth first is going to drink. Then I don't know, and then he ate. It's not a shackle. However, now there's exceptions. But the space in between the liquids and the batzik is how much space? It's enough time that the cow can wipe its tongue on its lips. Then we say, my friends, in other words, even if we're going to go with the presumption that first the cow drank, since while it was walking to eat, there was enough time, darkoi of the para to wipe its tongue against its lips after it drinks. Now let's go into other behemoths, what their minig is. So the para is talachech l'shoina. Ubashar kol behema, if it's enough time, shetenagev espia, it dries their mouth with their tongues. Pachos mizeh, but if you have less of that distance, based on the klal that we began in this halacha, havatzik tamei, because the animal is first going to drink, then it's going to eat. Here we say, why a kelev is different? Because a kelev doesn't have enough food in nature, so to say. That's why you can feed a kelev on Shabbos. And we also learned that Hashem made the digestive tract of a kelev. It takes 72 hours to be ma'achol the mazoin. You're welcome. Now, in other words, what are we saying? The batzik is taught. This moisture, the saliva of the caliph. Let's go down to chickens that pecked at the dough. Which is what they would do with they're peckers. You ever saw chickens? They keep on knocking the ground. So then, even though they drink first, the water got smeared on the ground. Because by chickens we say yes, like by all creatures other than the dogs, and then the nikru babatzik, and they had the mashkin was still in their mouths. The chicken is only mashkin salulin when the water is salulin. What's called clear waters? How do you define halacha clear waters? Not the way you American think clear means that if a child looks in the water, abua means the shadow. That a shadow is not so strong. It's clear enough that you can see the shadow in the water. With shadows, right? But if it's murkier, that means it's that if there's a shadow, but the shadow in the water cannot be seen. Why? Because here we say, I think that's only by the chickens, maybe. But in other words, guys, if the water is murky, why don't you say look at the moist water to see what it is? And if the water would be murky, you would notice the murky waters in the batzik. It has to be a type of liquid that you don't know whether it's the water, whether it's the saliva. Now, again, like the Rambam wrote before, like Rabbi Zajac, right? We're speaking about it's not a suffix shakel, and it can be she'ein vaydas lishoel, but we're going to be machmer, but machmer not for sarfin, only for toilin. Ain't sorry machmer because Allah toilin. Halacha even more. Don't think that we always just say toilin. No, sometimes there's different levels of suffix. Suffix shakel, suffix she'ein shakel. Now, by the way, by Rishus Yachad B'chal we're machmer, but the Rambam wants to make it clear we don't say Sveikoi Tamei Soidif. They're also Sveikoi Tamei Toilin, but sometimes you're going to say Sarfin. And here's the case: Isa Babayis, and you have both Shiratzim and Sfardim that were Metaplim Sham. Metaplim Sham means that they are stuck in it. And guys, none of them are Metame. None of them are metame when they're living, but the nimtzu chatichos mipsarim beisam. So im roiv hametaplim shiratzim ho'iso tamer v'tisarev. Havakasha. What's b'chlal the suffix? What's b'chlal the suffix? If there's a piece of the flesh stuck in the isa. What's the suffix over here? How can you? I'll tell you what the suffix is. I don't know what it is. That's the avort. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a piece of the mouse, if it's the piece of the frog. So when we're saying that if roiv shiratzim, what is the roiv? The roiv is saying the shtikala is from the sheretz. If it's the sheretz, then you have to burn it. If the majority of creatures, can you
imagine he really wants to eat that dough.
He really wants to eat that dough. And by the way, the some people, like the Gabbai, they make comments of how good the food is. I don't know. The question is, you're not eating the piece of flesh. You're throwing that out, but very good. We're speaking about a person, guys, you're a person that's taught. And next to you have both Tumas and Tarois. Next to you, or Lamaila Mimenu. Above you, where did we learn, Danny, that don't hang the bread from a basket? It brings poverty in the house. Guys, remember that? That was in Chagiga. I don't remember which Masechta. That was one of the Moed little Masechtas. So, but people hang food. Sometimes you lay down and on top of you say, hang test. Both Tumas and Taharais. You're tired, guys, right? And Vinisata Vitalisoi. And now you wrap the talis. Never stand to a Yidden shul when they're wrapping the talis if you don't want to get a kanak in your face. And now the safek nagu, safek loy nagu, the eshet shenis atei. Was there contact? Was there not contact? So here we say, Imay b'reshus hayachid sveiker tamei. Shesafek tuma haba b'dei adam l'shalom lo. Now, guys, this is a very big din. Don't tell me you learn nothing new. This is a big new din. I'll tell you why. What are we questioning, Danny? We want to know whether the talus is tamei. Why don't we say, Dovi, that the talus ain't by das lishol? We want to know whether the talus had contact with something. I don't know if it touched the talus or the tomatoes. Who moved the talus? A person. So that's the pshat. Shesafek tuma haba b'dei adam. So you have whom to ask. Now we're going to see, especially in next chapter, yesh l'davar soif. Yesh l'davar soif. The point that Rambam wants to make is that even if the doubt is the talus toid or tamei, the talus touched the taras or the tumas. Who moved the talus? If it was moved by a person, it's close enough to say it's a scenario where yesh by das lishol. And the same thing is b'keli emunach al gabe akarka. And there's a doubt which is connected to someone moving it. Harehu kemi sheyesh by das lishol. Now, fine. But and it's a safek hashakol sveikoitar. Now, the Kesavishna points out, my friends, the Rambam doesn't have to write that. The Rambam is really telling you that even though we say Safek B'Reshus Harabim Sveikoitar, if it's Karoiv Levadai, however you define that, you have to know many halachas. There comes a point, like we said before, that Sveikoitar. You don't always say Sveikoitar. It has to be a Safek Shak. Halachazai.
Rabbi,
yes.
If you could ask him the question, but he doesn't know, does that impact us one way or another? You could ask him. He doesn't know.
So we said that's why the Rambam in the beginning gave the case of the Summa or the Mahalach Balayla, that even if in this case they don't know, but you have a person whom to ask. Elamai, there we were speaking about a Summa that might have touched tumor or not. Here we're speaking about a talus. Chiddush is that Rambam says that the talus that was wrapped by an Adam, that's called Safek Tuma Haba B'dei Adam. Haba B'dei Adam. It's still Das Lishon, even though they don't know. They don't know. Not that we don't, they don't know, but there's Das Lishon. Halacha Zay. Kicker Shal Truma, that's put on top of a daf, it's put on top of a board, and something that has Tumas Midras is underneath it. Not shy. Now, 1 second. When something is on a daf and then it's on the ground, I want to go back to we keep on having this, Dovi. Who said it fell down? Could be someone took it down. If it would have fallen down, it would have for sure touched it. It's on an inclined area, which means the daf was midrained, likely that it fell off by itself. Nevertheless, then we say, however, if the guy says, I know who's here, no one has access to this place, then Tomei, because once you establish Shabbat Nafal, then the Nagaba Midran Kishan Nafal. Very good. And that's even B'Reshus Harabim. That's what we're going to keep on learning. That's not a halacha ches. Tinik shenimsa betzad bebeis hakvares, and the tinik has in a sense sheishanim lech, and there's only sheishanim b'makom tuma. So l'chayda, how did he get it? Same thing. Logic is he went into the beis hakvares. When he got to sheishanim, he became from the tinik stomach. We don't say that. You did not find him in the beis hakvares. Maybe a person gave it to him. Sveikoitor shema achar. Shema Acher Likton, not Likotan. Someone else gathered the Shoshanim. That person became Tamei. Guys, also another few details. The Shoshanim did not become Tamei because why would it become Tamei? It's not Muksher. He cut it off, gave it to the cotton. Unasanam like, hold on. Why don't we say it's a Safek? Guys, I'll tell you more. We don't even say B'Reshus Hayachid, it's Tamei. That's a good example because a tinoik is aimed by das lishol, not a cotton. A tinoik, infant. Chen chamoir Hoyim beis hakvares. Kelaf to hoyim. I chamoyim lach dreizach. The ein hoyim nem shemen esmaich bohen v'nogo b'kever. Place the chamar lay down. No, you didn't find it that way. They play she'ein by das lishol, and the key. We're going back to this klal. All of this is when you found the chamoir and the kelim loy nimsu noigen. They were not touching. And therefore, we say v'chalatumais is only kishas mitziyasan. Halacha 9. Tinoik shahaya toifes biyadoi shal aviv. He's holding his father's hand. Oi, that he was reichet and the kseifa shal aviv. Here again, like we had in halacha, where was it halacha vav? Saf sveika b'rishus hayachid tamei. Because since he's mamish directly with his father, again, there's a line in the next chapter. There's a line where you don't say this. Because he is ein by das lishol. Not you found him al tzad beis hakvaros with Shoshana. No. He's on the father's shoulder. And then even if the father doesn't know regarding this case, if he's holding the father's hand, it's yesh by das lishol. And the final halacha in this chapter, halacha yud, says the Rambam, different levels. Number one, the lowest level is the tinoik she'eni yachal halech. Can't even move, can't walk yet. The mother left him here, and she found him over there. And we find him in the place where you left him. Even though there's tuma, obviously in the location, we say Todd. Maybe we don't say that. A good example. Women have a minig when they find a baby by themselves. It's a good minig, especially a baby by himself. You go, you hug him, you kiss him. Women have nida, zava. Why would we say that? Now, one level up. Once the child can move around by himself, we say that bigadov tohayim, ve'ein midras, as we say regarding all other big day Yam Ha'aretz. However, this midras of a big day Yam Ha'aretz goes to the tinnik. Interesting. But you only do it when he can begin walking by himself, moving by himself, walking by himself. Number 3, Higdel Achi Yeboy Dasli Shoel. I'm being medayik. It's not a godel, but he's, he can answer questions. Then that's the normal rule. Sveikar Tomim B'Rishus HaYachid. Higdel Achi Yeboy Das Lishmoid as Gufay. Now, once he's old enough that he knows how to take care of himself from becoming Tuma, Fakert, now you trust him. Oichlin al Gufay Taharis. And if he knows how to be Shomer is Yodayim, Oichlin al Gavim Taharis. Now, I'm at a simple question. How do you know? Anyways, he doesn't even have to be a God. He's a Ben Chaver. How do you know you have to observe him? If you don't know what to look for, that means you're not knowledgeable enough. So it's people that are shomer the gufim, they behave a certain way. People that are at least shomer the yordayim, you can look and so. Rambam says, "Ketzan boys can I say, matbil nois," and give them chulin. Don't give them truma because maybe you can't make a test. Don't give your telsa to your teenager. You give him chulin, but you tell him that it's altaras truma. No, you tell him, I want you to know, I want you to treat this like truma. There's no downside because it's only chulin. Understand? Im yodeya, guys, yodeya means you're observing. You're looking at him. If he knows how to be shomer his guf, then oichlan agav gufay taharis. If yodeya lishman es yadav, oichlan agav yadav taharis. So there's a certain bechina that you make. Whether you have to tell him you're being misguided on him or not, I don't think it makes a difference. And there, the word is, it can be a cotton. But there's a certain age where he's completely taught, certain age where begotten become him gavaldik. These are the 4 levels, betinik, and the mazel tov for being the sign, Pedig to Zayin. And now Pedig Yud Zayin is so geschmack in the sense that the Rambam is going to give many different cases. First of all, he's going to begin with this yesh by das lishol, ein by das lishol. What the Rambam introduced in Pedig to Zayin Halacha Vav is that whenever there is a human person involved in moving an inanimate item, the tuma is a doimim, the talus is a doimim. We don't say that if the suffix is whether one touched the other, b'rishus hayachid, ein by das lishol, tar. No. If it was moved by a person, but we're going to see there's limits to that. So we're going to learn in the beginning of Yud Zayin more scenarios to contrast yesh by das lishol, Ein by das lishol, and we're going to learn many different types of sfekas. You're going to learn different levels of doubts. So, kavua, it's mechza mechza, many different. Nimtza, halech achal haroiv. We're going to learn logics and rules and halacha. It's not stam suffix. There are many different types of sveikos. It's a fascinating chapter. Perek Shiva Asar has 9 halachas. It's 9 gezunta halachas. We have enough time to learn this properly, beginning with halacha aleph. Kizayis min hameis b'fi ha'oy. Kizayis min hameis, my friends, in parts, tuma, even tuma soil. It's in the mouth of a raven. And Safik Hail al Adam, or maybe the al Hakela. And Nach Bereshus Hayachid, Safik Loy Hail, Hadei Ha'adam Tamei Misafik. That's a classical case. Danny, does this guy know whether the raven was on a set? No, he doesn't know. It could have been. Point is why, who she boy das lishol. And not a deaf mute, not someone who's compromised. Don't say not a minor, not a immature minor, not a very young minor. The suffix is whether it was mile ala kalim, same. The other wasn't the same rishus hayachid. Then we say mepnei das lishol. That's atkan the chazar of what we learned. Now, here we begin. A person is drawing water using one kalim. So you have a bucket. And the nosan ba'asara kalim, and that one bucket is being poured into 10 other kalim. Now, that keli is tamei. There's no doubt about that. But why? Shema hasheretz bikli shemila boyhoya tchila. Right? In other words, guys, if the sheretz was in the bucket that he was using to draw all the water, what happens? Let's go through the dinim. Then all of the waters had contact with the sheretz. These waters are even midoiraisa at batchila, and we learned that mashkin midrabanan can be matama kalim, and if they went to the inside of a keli, they're matama the whole keli. That detail, I think it was Perek Shvi, that mashkin that are tummy beginning with an av, like this case, and now they are a batchila, no matter how. If they touch the achoyra hakeli, so to remember, it said the rabbanan, only the achoyra hakelim are matama mashkin. Remember, oichlin, they're not matame, that was the end of halacha well, but they're matama mashkin. Here went to the inside of the keli. So we don't say that is what happened. Why not? Because since the question is on a keli, the ein bohem das lishol. Now you can say we learned in the previous Perek halacha vav that something was moved by a person. It's different over here. You see, it's already far removed. I know that there was a person involved in the pouring of the water. So what? We're speaking about where was the sheretz. Was it in the original keli? Was the sheretz? We say the sheretz is in the keli that you find it right now. But if the keli that you use to draw water has an inner rim, we're speaking about a rim that when you pour water out, if there's something solid, it remains in it. Here, Gewalt, we say that they are all tamei. In other words, we assume whoever's losing a chayenu, let's get this, he has good words, in footnote 5, that the carcass was in the container used to draw the water, and it remained there until the water was poured into all of the containers. Thus, all of the waters in all of the containers, and therefore the kalim themselves are tamei.
But where are we finding the actual sherets right now?
So I'm thinking about that, Danny. So I think what happened is that you found the sherets in the last container. It must be that, Danny. And when you have, let's say if I'm using a bucket and the bucket has a rim, when I pour out the water to the 10th keli, I completely turn it over. I know. I don't think I didn't draw the water 10 times. I have this big bucket and I have like 10 cups. So the last one has the shedetz in it. Since there's a chance that the shedetz was there the whole time. Was if the bucket that I'm using doesn't have a rim, then the kasha is, why wouldn't the shedetz go out right away? To say they're all tamei. If there's a chance, the more the chance, it's Danny. 1 second. It's not that we know it was in the original bucket. It could easily have been in the bucket that you found it from the whole time. I know that, but as long as there's a possibility that it was in the original bucket, and from the beginning, it didn't go out right away because there was a rim. We're going to be machmer. Now, hold on. You see, the Kesef Mishnah just points out, Danny, why don't we say Safek Tamei B'Reshus HaYachid Ein By Das Lishol?
Is Ein By Das Lishol because of the bucket, but there's a person there?
That's the whole thing. So I have a question, Danny. So why did the Rambam write in Halacha Aleph in the first case, the Pnei Kelim Be'Ein Bam Das Lishol? The Kesef Mishnah is pointing all this out over here. But the Rambam is using this scenario, like I was saying. On one hand, we learned in the previous chapter, Halacha Vav, that a person is pouring it, Yesh By Das Lishol. And sometimes we don't say that. Like the Rambam in the beginning of this halacha does not say, the Kesef Mishnah remains with a problem. He's trying to understand exactly where do you draw the line. Let's go back. You're using 10 different buckets to draw the water. One bucket into one keli. You don't know which bucket poured into which keli. And now you find the shedetz in one of the, not one of the buckets, in one of the kelim. So we say, with the 10 buckets, we are lenient throughout. We say the shedetz was always in this keli. I b'reshus hayachid ein by das lishol over here. Here again, if there is a logical, it's not a suffix hashakol. In Mitzias, it would have been possible because of there being a rim and a keli that the shedetz was also in the dli, and only at the end did it fall into the keli. And they call hadeloyim and kol came to meim. Because we don't know, because here we say, Danny, that the shedetz was in the dli, and then we don't know which dli had the shedetz in it. We don't know which one poured into which one. We're extremely machmer over here. Again, we're not going to say that.
Isn't there a concept of rive here? If there's like, it's only 1 out of 10? Because it's not the same bucket that poured into all 10 like before. Here, there's 10 separate ones into 10 separate containers.
Amazing. We don't say that. We're very machmer. Next case, when you pour a stam from one container to the other, and you find the shedetz in the last one, it's called a suffix shakel. Oh, this is a real suffix shakel, and we don't say das li shol. So you're using this container to store your talis, and now you find the shedetz in it, and you find the chametz in your Pesach closet. If the scupa stands upright, or if it has a rim, so even if you cannot stand upright, so it goes to the side, but the shedetz would have remained in it. We say because we assume that that the container at the time that the taharas were in there already had the shedetz. You know, this thing with the rim, that it makes more sense that the shedetz was in there. Let me say it differently. If it did not have a rim, then the shedetz would have been poured out together. Okay. If it did not have a rim, then we don't assume the shedetz was there when the taharas were there, because it goes out easily. Then it's not a suffix hashakol. If there was a rim, that means it's more possible that the shedetz was there longer and it got stuck in there. Even if someone checked it and it was covered, we don't say that it's tar. We say it's tamei. But guys, let's also chazer a klal that we learned in the previous chapter, and that is in Perek Tezvav, kol hatameyos kishas mitziyasan. Let's use that to the negative. Now you found the sheretz. Now you found the sheretz. So if you're going to say that it's highly likely that if there would have been a sheretz there before, it would have gotten out because it was easy to go out. Nantaka, you don't say it was there before. But the moment there's a rim, or if the keli stands on a base, then if you find the sheretz now, you say there was a sheretz there before. You looked at it. You say the sheretz fell the moment after you looked at it. It goes back to the end of the bedika. When you put the cover, a sheretz fell in it. Wow. And the tilt if you move the container and now you find the sheretz, kulam tameyos. When we go back, because now you find them when you go back, we don't say, well, go back only when the box was in this location. No. Now the Rambam adds another nuance. This is not enough for you to be decided, but litlois, avoloy lisroiv. Halacha zayin, hazoylev es haboir. You're drawing liquids from a boir, and you're filling up barrels from it.
It's halacha gimel.
Halacha gimel, thank you. Hazoylev es haboir, mamalomenu chavyois. If the way you are drawing the liquid is by putting the chavius in the boir, and now you find the sheretz in the first chavius, so we say they are all tamei, because now the sheretz contacted, my friends, the liquid in the boir. All of the liquids are tamei. Liquid that's tamei that now enters another, everything becomes tamei. If you find the sheretz ba'achreina, then we can argue only he tamei of a kolom tahiras. Sha'ani oimer acher shemili in another shaynis, only then nafal hasheretz leboid. And now you don't go back lemafreya. Ho yozoylev bikli, if you're drawing liquids with one container, but you're putting it from that kli into other chaviyasin, the noise on the chaviyas at shemilan until each one is full. You're using the same kili to fill up all the different barrels. Here we say the sheretz was lechatchila in that chavius. You understand? I'm sorry. Either it fell after the chavius was full, or it was even there before, but it was never not in the pit, not in the boid, nor in the kli. It was in that barrel. And then you only, after you checked each one, you filled it up with wine. And you covered it after you filled it up. And now you find the sheretz, now you got a problem. Because that is already, how did it get in there? It must have come from the boid. If the sheretz was baboid, everything is tamei. Kulam tameyos. And avad bechinim nitzur sheretz baboid, or if you find it b'kli shel of boid, we say hakoil tamei. Because we say, since you found it now, it was there before. Halacha dalet. If you're gathering olives, right, from the matan, from the pit, which is are stored, and you're bringing them up to the roof to dry, and now you find the sheretz in it while the zeisam are on the roof. We want to know, where did the sheretz come from? Here you moved it, but it's different than moving the container. Now we say zeisim shemema'atan tohidim. The zeisim that are still in the pit, right? The other ones that are still being stored are tohidim, because the sheretz lechatchila went onto the roof. Nimsa b'matan. Now, if you find the sheretz in the pit, hama'atan is tamei. However, what is the Rambam trying to say in between the lines? The pits, the zeisim on the roof are tar. Why? Because again, you found nothing on the roof. Maybe the sheretz fell into the matan after you removed those, so those are still tar. Nimsa bein koisel l'zeisim. Here also, you don't move the tuma around. Then azeisim are toidim. That's a classical case. There's no das lishol. Why do they have content? However, obed nimsa hasheretz b'toich gush shel zeisim. So you have a mound of olives. These mounds took a few days to form, and you find it in it when the gush is bagag. So we say the following: in b'toich shloishes yamim, and again, a gush forms over 3 days. So if it's already a formed gush, and there's a sheretz in it, that means the sheretz got in it prior to you taking it to the roof. Where did it come from? It came from the matan. Afa matan tame. Sha'ani yomer gush zeh min matan Allah, and the sheretz was in it while it was in the matan. But now we say amatam toy because shema bagag niskatsu, and now benasu gush betoich shloishes hayamim. Very good. Halacha hakoyretz mikretzes min isa. The word koyretz mikretzes means you're taking a piece. Before we had in the previous chapter or 2 chapters ago, right? The isa, the butzek. So that's the words over here. You have a little piece of dough from a larger isa. And now, same thing, you find the sheretz only in this little shtickle. All right? Now, another detail. We're not speaking about the sheretz being in it. It's not mixed in it, but it's touching the outside of it. So we say, like we had in Halacha Daled. You found it here. The mikretzes now is not touching the isa. So the sheretz fell on it after you removed it from the isa. But that was only because it was on the outside of it. It was touching it external. But if you find it in the isa, the same case here also, and we say that it fell in there after you removed the mikretzes. If it's in the mikretzes, then we say afo isa tameya. In other words, it makes sense that it fell into the isa. And then when you pulled out this piece, you pulled out the piece with the sheretz. This is all about, it's not a suffix shakel. It's more likely that this is what happened. So you're going to be machmer, even though it's ein by das lishol. Halacha vav. Oichel tamei. Let's use a mashal of a date. And you found now, if a date, if the date is tamei, the pit of the date is not tamei. So you find oichel tamei. There was a food. And there's a piece of bread. And all you find in the bread is the pit of the date. Or you find only a pit of food that you know was tamei inside a boiling hot pot, a boiling hot tafshel. There's no liquid present. We say that they are tameim. The kikar and the tafshel are tameim. Why? I'll tell you why. The garden, my friend, is not tamei, but we say that the food, that the oichel, my date, the mashal, fell into the bread while the whole date fell in there. Then the food decomposed. Which can happen when you put it into the oven. Or we're speaking about a tafshel that's roiseach. The pit, you don't find the food. You only find the pit because the food dissolved because of the cooking. And now all you find is the gari nosai. However, on top of the kikar, only the pit. Or if you find the pit inside a tafshel, but it's cold, we say it's tahidin. And even though there's mashke, which allows for tumah to pass a lot easier, so what? What did you found? You found the pit. Only after Shavara Oichel Neolel, and the pit is not metame. Again, the concept of it's not just about Rishus Yachad, Rishus Rambam, it's about a suffix shakel is where we make that differentiation. Here we're speaking about certain ways of looking at circumstances and what are the percentages of something happening. Allah Chazayin. Hoi babayis oichalin tameim. And you have in the same house oichlin tohoiden. And now you find the seed inside Venimsa's Garina Babayis. Garina Babayis means that you find, going back to Allah Chavav, you find a seed. Now we don't know whether it came from a good date or a bad date, inside the bread or inside the boiling food. And we learned before that if there was only oichel tamei, even though you only find the pit, betoich hakikar, betoich hatafshel leseach, we're going to be matamei. But here, maybe it came from the non-tamei date. So here you go after the roif. Oh, what was the majority of foods? And that concept of going after roiv, we don't say b'reshus hayachid b'reshus harabim. Dafka not. That's only by a suffix shuttle. And you find some blood on food. First thing you want to know is if roiv of the damim in the house were to hide him, everything is start. That you found blood on it. Because they said, oh, well, the sheretz is the living. There are sheratzim that are dead, sheratzim that are living. And Adam sheretz chay is still tahor. Beautiful. And you find, not in the store, you find on the street ashtikal meat. Right? We don't say safik b'reshus harabim tahor. No, it doesn't go that way. It's about the roiv. That's the classic manimsa, right? Not the teisha chanoyas, not in the chanoyas, on the street. You have to know which rodents are here in the city. Don't give me safik reshus hayachid reshus harabim. No, the nimtza ahalech achar haroiv. That's a very important rule. Now, if it's not roiv, that is where you evoke the reshus harabim reshus hayachid kishiyesh ledas lishoel. That's the point that Rambam wants to make in this chapter. Halacha 9, final halacha of this Pedek. Ha'isha shemigaveves gavava b'chatzer. Listen to this. She's collecting fertilizer in her chatzer, and she finds a sheretz inside the fertilizer. We say reizu tahira. She is tahira to begin with. Why? Because we have to remember those rules. However, nimsal gal gal begavava, she's tameya. Why? Maybe she touched it. So what? That's your case. Safek tamei b'reshus hayachid, my friends. Sfeikoi tamei. Maybe she touched it. Maybe she didn't. Okay. She is sifting kernels of grain with a sieve, and she finds a sheretz. Right, so the din is again she is tahira. Why? Because my friends, it's unlikely she touched it. Another important rule: safek tamei b'reshus hayachid sfeikoi tamei. It's not called a safek hashaka. When you're sifting something, think about it. What are the chances you're touching the bag? It's not matama b'masa. You only become tamei if you touched it. You know. I came from Brazil. Everyone sifted the rice. You don't touch the rice. You pour it out of the bag into the sifter. But if you find it on top of the kavara, not in the same thing, now sveikoi tamei, because now it's called a safek hashakol. Now that's only because it was b'reshus hayachid shemanagaboy, and now safek b'reshus hayachid tamei k'moy shebiyan. That was great.
That was amazing. Shkoyach.
Yeah.